Today we're going to learn more about setting gas pressure. We're going to learn more about gas furnaces, the parts, and what you need to know when you're installing a propane kit. When you have a customer that has a propane tank and that's the fuel that they use to burn to heat their home, then you need a propane kit. And a propane kit is a box that comes with an orifice size that's different from natural gas orifices. It comes with a spring that you have to install underneath the adjustment screw in the gas valve, which I'm going to show you. And it usually comes with a pressure switch. And I'm going to talk about the pressure switch, talk to you about what it looks like, and show you and give you a reason why we have a pressure switch. So we've installed a propane kit on this furnace today. And this furnace is 90%. Why is it 90%? Or how do we know it's 90%? It's got a PVC vent. That is the flue. And anytime you have a 90% furnace, it can be installed in an area that is conditioned, but it cannot be installed in an area that's unconditioned, like a basement or an attic space, unless that area is completely sealed or conditioned to where it doesn't get cold during the winter. Why? Because we have a drain. You see the drain? This drain right here leaves the collector box. And the collector box fills up with water because it's a condensing furnace. 90% is condensing. So whenever we create condensation, it goes in the collector box, it leaves the drain, it goes into the pump here. If it was in an attic space or it was in a crawl space and it became negative temperatures outside or below 32 degrees, then it could freeze the drain. And then that would cause a fault, and we would probably have a pressure switch not close, and it would stay open, and then the customer wouldn't have any heat. And there have been times where I've had to go work on a 90% furnace during the winter time, and it was negative temperatures and they didn't have air because the drain was frozen. So be careful about where you install these. Be careful about where you run the drains for the 90% furnaces. So what do we have to know? First, whenever we change our orifice size from natural gas to propane, we got to know what orifice size we need. And if you take a look right here for the tag for this equipment, you can see it says for natural gas when equipped with DMS drill size orifice number 45. So for natural gas, orifice size needs to be 45. Take a look at that. And then right here it says for propane gas when equipped with DMS drill size orifice number 55. Okay? And if you look at an orifice that is a number 45. Let's see if you can see that. That is number 45 orifice. You see the hole for that orifice? Okay. Now compare that to the number 55. Okay. I'll try to get you a close-up view. See that? This orifice is much smaller, right? This orifice is larger. So the 45 is for natural gas. The 55 was for propane. If you put them up beside each other, you're going to see that the propane always has a smaller hole. Natural gas is a much larger hole for the orifice. Why? Well, pretty simple. Your propane's at a higher pressure. So whenever we have that smaller hole, we're going to have increased pressure. When we have a larger hole, we're going to have decreased pressure, right? Now let's talk about gas pressure settings. You can look right here, and we've got installation notes here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that now. So we've got for LP gas, 10 inches of water column is what you want to set the outlet pressure for the gas valve. This is what it should be burning, right? 10 inches of water column. And then for manifold pressure for natural gas, it should be burning at 3.5 inches of water column. So this is what you're going to set your outlet pressure on your gas valve for if you've got a natural gas furnace, all right? Propane kit installed, we need to set it for 10. Now you know that there are different sizes of orifices for natural gas and for propane. So to be able to replace the orifices, we're going to take these 4 screws out, right? I've already taken those screws out. They were 1/4 inch screws. So a 1/4 inch bit in your drill would work great, or a 1/4 inch nut driver. You take 2 screws out on each side of the manifold pipe, and then you take the manifold pipe out. Now I've got a couple tubes, and then I've got some wires going to this pressure switch, which we're going to talk about. But right now I can get to those orifices. So what I would do is I would just take my crescent wrench and I would put it on the orifice, and then I would just unthread it and then thread it back on there, and you can use some pipe dope or some Teflon tape to be able to make it seal. That way you didn't have any leaks. After you change the orifices to meet the requirements for propane, you'll need to replace the spring. This right here is a spring, and where this is located is it's right underneath the adjustment screw. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver, and you're going to take the cap off of the adjustment screw for the gas valve. There's the cap. I just took the cap off, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the adjustment screw out. So I'm going to take that adjustment screw out right now. Adjustment screw is made of plastic, and if you turn that screw clockwise, you're going to increase the pressure. If you turn it counterclockwise, you're going to decrease the pressure. And once you take it out, you kind of put your flathead screwdriver in there, and then you'll be able to get the spring that's in there out. All right. Do not lose the spring. It's very easy to lose the spring. Now here's the spring that came out of there. You see that spring? And then this is the spring that we're going to put in. But actually, we're not putting this one in. We're putting this one back in because we had already replaced the spring. And the difference in the two springs is one of the springs is going to be putting more tension, and then the other one's going to be putting less tension. Okay, one of the springs is stronger than the other. The one that's stronger is the propane spring. Why? Because we're going to need more pressure with our propane unit. So I'm going to take this spring, put it inside where that adjustment screw was installed, and then I'm going to put this plastic piece, okay, back in. And I'm just doing this for training purposes so that you know how to do this. And now I'm not going to screw that adjustment screw all the way in. I'm going to wait until I put the unit in heating mode, and then I'll be able to test it while it's firing the burners up. Last thing you need to install is a pressure switch. Why do you have a pressure switch? Because when you get low pressure, you need the system to shut off. If you don't, you're going to have a soot issue. Because if we burn at a lower pressure for this gas furnace for very long, it's going to create soot. What happens when you create soot? You block up the heat exchanger. You don't want that, because I don't know if you've ever pulled a heat exchanger out of a furnace, but it's not fun having to clean out all the tubes, the heat exchanger tubes. You don't want that. So it's a pain. You might as well get a new heat exchanger, and you don't want to do that on a brand new furnace. And that's the reason with the propane kit they have this pressure switch. The way that it's wired is it's wired in series with the flame sensor. So if we don't have enough pressure coming to our gas valve, then this switch is going to open. It's not going to stay closed. It's going to open, and when it opens a circuit that is in series with the flame sensor. And when the flame sensor does not sense flame, then it will cause the furnace to stay off. The control board is going to have a fault code, an LED code, and there's going to be a description for that. Let's see if we can actually look at the pressure rating and see at what pressure it drops out. Then we're going to go ahead and turn the unit on the heating mode, and we're going to set the gas pressure. The gas line pressure switch will cause the furnace to lock out if the gas supply pressure drops below 6 inches of water column. The ignition control will display a fault code 7 and will reset after 1 hour. Here is a picture of our gas valve's regulator spring, the regulator cover screw, and then that adjustment screw right here. Just in case you need to see that, pause the video. All right, the gas line pressure must be a minimum of 7 inches of water column from natural gas. So we should have, if we measure gas pressure right here on the inlet screw, right here, coming into our gas valve, it should be 7 inches for natural gas. For propane, it should be 11. So, and I think you should look at it this way. You have to have 10. To have 10 on the manifold pressure, which is the outlet side of the gas valve, you have to have 11, right? That would make sense. To have 3.5 inches of water column on the outlet side of the gas valve or the manifold, you need 7, right? So this is the minimum inlet pressure that you should have for natural gas and propane, right? So we should have 11 right here measured on the inlet side of the gas valve for propane, and we should have 7 for natural gas. Now, to hook up our manometer, we are going to take this screw right here out just a little bit so that we can measure that pressure on the outlet side, and this is known as the manifold pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dual port manometer and pressure switch tester. I'm going to take my tube and put it right here, okay, like so, and now that's connected. Single stage and 2-stage gas valves. I want to talk about that for a minute. I've got it calling for the heating mode on the thermostat, so should be able to set the gas pressure here in a minute. But single stage and 2-stage gas valves. This is single stage. You know that because you only have one adjustment screw and it's just one pressure, right? If we have a 2-stage gas valve, we would have 2 caps, 2 adjustment screws. We'd have 2 springs that we would replace, and that would be for a low stage and a high stage. Right here is what a 2-stage gas valve looks like. You've got your low fire, your first stage adjustment screw, and then you've got your second stage or high stage adjustment screw. So if this was natural gas, your low stage would be about 1.7, high stage would be 3.5 inches of water column for the manifold pressure or outlet pressure. If it was propane, your low would be about 7 inches of water column, your high would be 10 inches of water column for propane. That would be your settings for your gas pressure or manifold pressure. There's also modulating gas valves, and those are commonly referred to as 3-stage gas valves or just modulating, and they're fully modulating. It's kind of like variable speed, basically. A propane kit for this type of gas valve, you would have 2 of those springs included. You'd have to replace both springs for the 2-stage system. And typically for natural gas, your low stage would be set at 1.7, your high stage would be set at 3.5. And if you had single stage natural gas, you'd do 3.5, right? It would just burn at that one pressure. If you have propane 2-stage gas valve, your low stage would typically be about 6.5 to 7 inches of water column on the low stage and the low burn, and then the high stage or the high burn, it would be set to 10. And this is single stage, so it's going to be set to 10. It's going to be burning at one pressure. Why it's so important to set the gas pressure is because most of the time when I have like a single stage natural gas furnace, usually I'm seeing the pressure at like 4 or 4.5. So if I never set the gas pressure, the customer's probably going to run out of, well, it's natural gas, so they got a gas meter. They're not going to run out of gas. But with propane, they would run out of gas faster, and they would burn more fuel than they needed to. For natural gas, they would just burn more fuel than they needed to. So it's important. It's something value added. If you learn this skill, you have the tool, you're offering the customer a better benefit. You're also, you're more professional. So you want to make sure the customer's not burning more fuel than they have to. And you want to make sure that, because if you didn't have a pressure switch and you didn't set the gas pressure for natural gas and it sooted up the heat exchanger on a brand new unit a year later, which I've had that happen on, I think, older units that didn't have pressure switches. Somebody went out, I think, changed a diaphragm or a regulator or something. I've had it happen. I think I've got a video about it. I'll put it down below. But you need to set gas pressure. So, furnace, we've got it connected. Oh, got a tube in here that's not connected to the collector box. This is for the fresh air. Gotta have fresh air. Gotta have your exhaust. Sometimes you need to run your fresh air outside. Having a concentric vent is nice because then you only have one penetration. If you don't know what concentric vent is, this is what a concentric vent looks like. This is so that you only have one penetration for both the exhaust and the fresh air. You've got your exhaust and your fresh air hookup, and right here's where it pulls in the fresh air, and this is where the exhaust would come out. If you want to know the difference between an 80% and a 90% furnace, I've got a video specifically on that, and I'll put it down below for you to learn. Make sure that when you turn on your manometer that you zero it out. That way you get the correct reading of the gas pressure. That's one tip I've got for you. And if you need a manometer, I'll put a couple links down below to an analog and a digital manometer. I use both, but I carry this one with me, and I use this the majority of the time. It works really well. All right, inducer motor's coming on first. Pressure switch is closed. Then all the safeties close. We've got a hot surface igniter that glows. Make sure that your manometer is zeroed out. And then whenever it lights, we're going to adjust the screw. It just lit, and it's only 1.7, 1.8. So I'm just going to take and turn this a couple turns, and then take a look. See, it's 3.6. Turn it a couple more times. It's 5.7. I'm going to let you see it while I turn it so you can see what happens. So we're turning it clockwise. See? A little more, because we want 10. Almost there. Almost there. We got 9.8. That's pretty good. We bottomed it out. So it's as far as we can go. Now what you can do is, if you need more pressure, you can adjust the regulator wherever the regulator is. That way you can get some more pressure. But I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with 9.8. So you can see you got a nice blue flame. 9.8 looks pretty good. Now if you have other gas appliances, you need to turn those on. That way you make sure your pressure doesn't drop down while the other gas appliances are burning as well. And that's a little tip I've got for you. Make sure when you take this back, take your manometer off, make sure you shut the gas valve off while you do that, and make sure that you screw that screw all the way back in. But we're at 9.85 right now. Here's a regulator that you may have to adjust. To adjust the regulator, you take the cap off the end, and then you've got this right here, which sometimes you can use a flathead screwdriver and put it right there on one of the ends, and then turn it. And you would want to turn it clockwise to increase the pressure, and then counterclockwise to decrease the pressure. Make sure that you put the outlet screw all the way back in and make sure it's tight. I left one loose one time, and when I left the job, you know, when the gas valve energizes and it opens, it sends gas through the manifold pipe right into the orifices, and that's how the burner's all light. But you pour gas through that screw hole whenever you leave it open, you can burn a house down. I left one loose one time, blew all the panels off the unit. That was when I first started. That was years ago. So make sure that you tighten all those screws back up, inlet, outlet. Please, if you're going to check the inlet pressure, what you want to do is you want to shut off the gas. Okay, this is the gas shut off. You shut it off, then you take the screw out, and then you measure the pressure. And another thing is, if you're not getting enough pressure on your outlet side, you need to definitely go check your inlet side. That way you can find out what your pressure is coming in. Then you'll know, hey, I need to go to the regulator. I need to adjust the regulator so that I got more pressure. So the other thing you want to do is you want to put all of your old orifices inside of a box, and you need to leave that with the customer or leave it inside the unit. Just make sure it's not going to get damaged or cause damage to the equipment. That way, if your customer ever has the opportunity to get natural gas, that you don't have to buy the orifices. You already have them. So the customer's got those. You just come back to the job, change out the spring, and you can probably leave the pressure, well, no, probably take out the pressure switch and change this nipple, and then change the orifices, spring, and take out the pressure switch to go back to natural gas. Here's the part number for this natural to LP conversion kit from Source One. This is the description of fault code number 7. 7 red blinks means failed to light burners, and that's what will be displayed if you don't have enough pressure and your pressure switch opens And then of course that means the flame is not going to be sensed. So if your flame is not sensed, that's what's going to happen. It's going to say failed to light burners. Here are all of your safeties in series with the gas valve and the call for heating. See this? You got your limit switch, you've got your 2 pressure switches, and your 2 rollout switches. So if the flame rolls out, these will open. If you don't have the correct vacuum pressure, then your pressure switches are going to stay open. So you could have a problem with your inducer motor, you could have water in your collector box, or you could have something stopping the fresh air or the exhaust pipe up, which could be a bird's nest, which could be water if you don't have the correct configuration for the piping. But these are the safeties right here that are in line. So one of these safeties opens, that's going to take the power away from the gas valve, and your gas valve is not going to have power, so of course you're not going to have any flame. That right there is the limit switch. These 2 are manual reset rollout switches. There's your flame sensor, your igniter on the left side, and then your 2 pressure switches, right? This one closes at 0.10 and this one closes at 1. So it's your 2 pressure switches. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If you did learn something, let me know in the comments what you learned. I was doing some training today, so I thought I would go ahead and do a video for you. I've got several videos on how to set gas pressure, whether it's 2-stage, it's single stage, whether it's natural gas or propane, and I'll put all those videos down below so you can learn more. If you want more videos like this, go check out my playlist, HVAC Tips for Technicians. I've got a bunch of videos of live in the field experience as a technician to help you to be a better technician. Hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe and smash that bell, ding, so you know what I'm doing. You've been watching HVAC Tips for Technicians. I'm Tad, and I'll keep you cool if you let me.